welcome to our 2 o'clock panel. I'm partnering with your community. So we kind of have a hybrid of a panel / presentation for y'all today. We wanted to make sure we had some visuals to kind of help explain what we're talking about. So it's kind of like a guided question panel for y'all. Just a reminder, like partnering with your community, we're going to talk about, all of us work at Best Friends, and we're going to talk about our different channels that we're focused on in our roles and how we all work together on certain campaigns. So the first thing we're going to do is introduce ourselves. So I'm Ash Collins. I use she, her pronouns. I've been at Best Friends for about 2.5 years, and I'm the influencer relations specialist at Best Friends. So that means that I work with social media influencers to get them to talk about Best Friends, adoption, fostering, like different advocacy campaigns, those types of things. So I know that I'm with a national organization and my big focus is social media, and so you might be thinking, how am I going to get social media influencers to talk about my local rescue? And I would encourage you to think about, as I'm talking, the influencers that are in your community. So whether that's your local mommy blogger, or I came from a shelter in Wisconsin where we had a guy who literally would go around and take pictures of people's cats in their yard, and he was a partner of our local shelter, and he had like 20,000 followers on Instagram. So still it's a smaller account. So as I'm talking about influencers today, I'll mainly be focusing on larger social media accounts, but I encourage you to use that and think about who's an influencer in your community. So whether it's a local news station, that mommy blogger, whoever it might be, just think about that.
Cool. My name is Keiko Berkon. I am the digital organizing manager on the grassroots advocacy team. So I primarily work with the advocates that help make change possible in our local communities every day. Yeah, I've been with Best Friends for a little bit over a year now, and advocates are obviously very important to local shelters too, and we will get into that as we have our discussion.
Hi, I'm Kerry, McKeel. Actually, before I joined Best Friends, I worked at several different shelters, both municipal and nonprofit. I've been with Best Friends now for almost 4 years in different capacities, working in different capacities, I should say, but now I'm in a marketing strategist role. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Michelle Sathe. I've been with Best Friends for about 10 plus years. I was in the PR department in Los Angeles for about 9 years, and then I recently transitioned to our mothership in Kanab, Utah, where I do PR marketing and visibility.
Awesome. So our first question really for the panel is, what is the benefit or purpose of reaching out to your specific channel? And Kerry, I'll have you go first.
Okay. So, marketing, it's very broad. It can be very hyper-localized when you're talking about marketing for like an individual dog or cat when you're trying to get an individual dog or cat out of the shelter. Or it could be as broad as a national campaign. So when you think about it like that, you have to really think about like the tactics and the tools that you would use to serve the audience that you're trying to communicate your message with. So I think, for me, it goes back to, your question was about the channel. A lot of times in marketing, we use various channels to communicate our message, but what you really need to know when you're thinking through and planning is who your audience is, who are you trying to reach, and then you pick the appropriate channels to do that with.
So I work with the media a lot, and the benefit of doing that, as I'm sure a lot of you would attest to, is that when you see a story in a newspaper or on TV or hear it on the radio, it lends a lot of credibility to an organization. And so my goal is always to promote the leadership, to promote the work that we do. Sometimes it's to promote events or particular pets that are in need of a home. There's many, many different aspects to it, but basically in PR, you're the liaison between your organization and the media, and you're always trying to make sure your organization looks good.
Yes, and while they spoke about kind of channels and stuff, I would say advocates, that's really an audience, and you really need to engage with them to create positive change in your community. So whether or not you have ordinance barriers or policy barriers, or even you just need more resources and you have to, essentially lobby your city council to allocate more resources, you'll need those advocates, those supporters to be able to contact those elected officials and say, hey, I support this, and that helps build your case with elected officials because obviously their whole goal is to be reelected, so they really care about what constituents think. So it's also important that with grassroots advocates, not everyone can foster or donate or adopt at that time. So it's really great to have this other audience that can be a supporter to you and advocate for you in the community. And then, of course, they can speak great things about your shelter, what you're doing for your community, and then by word of mouth, their friends and family are going to hear about that shelter, and maybe they can foster, adopt, or donate. So really important to be able to foster that relationship.
With my channel, which is influencers, I really love, I think the benefit of working with influencers is you're reaching people that are potentially outside of your community. So people are following your organization on social media, which is a very easy way to touch a wide audience. But by working with these influencers, you're pulling them into the fold and then also their audience. So studies have shown that influencers on social media are trusted at the same level by consumers as friends and family. And so when you're working with those influencers, even though there's someone that audience member may never meet in person, they trust them to that level. And so by hearing that influencer say, I think adoption is really important, and here's my story about my adopted cat, that hopefully will encourage that audience to also do that. I also encourage people to work, we at Best Friends obviously work a lot with animal-related influencers, but we also work with people outside of that world, because if we're only ever working with the cat influencer who fosters puppies, who's vegan, we're never going to reach a new audience, and we're never going to reach other people that maybe aren't inside of that adoption world and animal welfare world. And so really the focus of my channel is trying to bring those people in, build that trust with hopefully new audience members. So our next question we had is, how do all of our channels work together on a campaign? And I made this very scary word web to share with everyone.
It's very intimidating.
That's really hard for us to see on stage. But as you can kind of see, and obviously please chime in, panel.
Yes.
You can kind of see, we start with an marketing channel. So we have our channels, and then we kind of split up into our 4 areas of marketing, influencers, advocacy, and public relations. And so you can see PR is TV, radio. See, I can't even read it. All right, y'all. So you can see we've got for PR TV, radio, online news, and print. But online news is also connected up to influencers, because there's a lot of online blogs and online news sources that want to talk about influencer stories and celebrity stories. Influencers are connected to social media, which also loops all the way back around to your volunteers for your advocacy campaign, because those volunteers are hopefully posting about the petitions and the things that they want their community to participate in to support your work. So we have this very scary web to really just show that we're all very connected. And so while we each have our own focuses of our channel, we all are working together a lot and using a lot of the same tactics in our channels to reach people.
Yeah. And I was just going to add, though, you might be sitting there thinking, well, I'm like a one-woman, one-man show at my shelter, and how is that possible for me? And so I think, looking at that, as scary as it may be, and, all of us having different parts in that, having been a one-woman show at a shelter before, some of it is, just thinking, again, back through the tools. I might not have an influencer person, but how can I, be taking a portion of what I dedicate of my time every day to be looking for those influencers, or maybe I need to learn how to write a press release. So sometimes it's like wearing many hats, but just know that even though that those are representative of each of us and the divisions that we serve, it is possible to do it even as a one person in your own organization.
And we'll get into recruiting people to help you.
Yes.
Yes. To add on to this, when we were creating this web, I was like, really, advocacy can just have a giant circle over all of it. Because advocacy, we need to utilize all of these different marketing tactics, social media influencers, all of it really to get the word out on specific advocacy issues that we're trying to gather people for. So that's something that we really need to keep in mind. And with advocacy, for influencers, sometimes, Best Friends is not the best voice in a community to be using. Sometimes we can reach new audiences utilizing, local influencers that people look up to and trust, rather than, best friends coming in and being like, hey, sign this petition when they haven't heard of us ever. So utilizing that, or, utilizing marketing campaigns that tie in, we'll get into an example of that. But, we want to be able to reach new audiences, and all of us working together really helps reach those audiences, because of course we can talk to our advocates and the people that we have all the time. We've already got them, and through that I'm already emailing them, I'm already texting them, I'm already doing all of that stuff. But to really reach new people, to make it more welcoming, and again, show elected officials that we are representative of the community, we need to be able to reach every member of that community, so that elected officials can be like, okay, my community actually wants this, I will vote in favor of it, or repeal a barrier that everyone hates. So yeah, that's kind of all-encompassing.
Awesome. Michelle, did you have anything to add?
We're going to get into it in the Big Dog campaign, but
Okay.
If you're not a Best Friends Network partner, I would highly encourage you to join, because one of the things we do in communications is we provide you with marketing templates, graphic templates, press release templates, and I believe you were saying about influencers, local influencers. A lot of times, media markets would much prefer to go to their local shelter than hear from a national animal welfare organization. So we basically are trying to give you all the tools you need to go out and make that impact with your different channels.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that we do that too, where sometimes, the local shelter, the local network partner has, a lot of supporters already. So why are we best friends going to represent whatever change needs to happen? We can pass that along and really help the network partner be the lead and the face for that particular issue and movement.
I know a question that I had when we came up with this panel was, what is really the difference between PR and marketing? And like we've kind of identified here, there's a lot of gray area in all of our different channels. But I was really hoping that Kerry and Michelle could just kind of explain that to the group, because I'm still a little iffy on it.
Yeah, we get that question a lot. And having been on both sides, toggling both sides, I think the simplest way to explain that, because both of them really do promote, and amplify a message, promote a brand, the organization, that kind of thing, to recruit new members, volunteers, things like that. But with marketing, a lot of it can be paid. You're thinking about paid advertisements and things like that. And then whereas PR is more earned media, in-kind media.
Yeah, and what that means is basically we do not pay for editorial. What we do is we go out and we pitch stories to different news markets and ask them to cover them, which they do at no cost. So it's actually a really good investment of your time if you have a staff member that you think might be good at doing something like that, or recruiting a volunteer that already has that skill set. You get a lot of bang for your buck that way.
Awesome. So now you've heard kind of about our channels and a little bit about what we do, but I'd love for the panel to share how you do outreach for your channel. How do you start or build these relationships that you have?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and kick it off. We have, like I said, our advocate base that we already have that already believe in our mission. We have a lot of different outreach to new audience members to bring them into that advocate base. But as far as outreach goes, we're emailing, we're texting, we are posting articles. We're also doing webinars to help give information, to train people, to make sure that they have all the tools in their hands to be able to do advocacy work in their own communities. And of course, with building that relationship, we obviously have to have some sort of draw, some sort of hitch for them to grab onto, and that is usually related to whether or not they believe in whatever change we're trying to create. And if we can bridge that gap with them and explain why the community needs certain things, it's pretty easy for people to come in and be like, okay, that makes sense to me. And again, it's a lot lower of a barrier if, you're not asking them to foster or adopt or donate because maybe they already have, 5 dogs. They don't need another one. So it's, again, another way to really support a movement around animal welfare and, reaching no kill by giving them something to do about it. And of course, trust and transparency is very important in advocacy. We want to take them along with us on that journey and make sure that they know, what we're doing, why we're doing it, and the little progresses we make along the way. So that's how we kind of keep them in our system and, keep them involved is by continuing to give them things to do, continuing to update them. And yeah, that's how we kind of start and build that relationship, but also maintain it over time.
I'll go. So PR is kind of a long game. It's a matter of, first of all, doing some research into the media markets in your community, or the media outlets, I should say. Your TV stations, your radio stations, your online publications, your print publications, everything is under the media umbrella. So if you're fortunate enough to have a software program like I do, you can find it pretty much at your fingertips. And if you email me and ask real nice, I'll be happy to send you a media list for your market. But if you're just kind of starting from scratch, Google is your friend. Just type in like top media outlets in Bakersfield, and it should bring up a list of all of those things. Take a look at who the reporters are, take a look at their social media channels, see who the animal lovers are. I've developed relationships with reporters in LA who loved animals and ended up doing pet adoption spots with them and having their support on social media, and it's really fantastic. But it does take a little bit of time, and you may not get a result right away, so just keep doing it. And I used to work in a newsroom. I worked for a paper in Santa Clarita, California, and I worked for the features section, so it was like mostly lifestyle and more of the happy stuff, not news. And I'll tell you, if I found a resource that consistently provided me with everything I needed, I would go back to that resource over and over and over again. So you're really wise to put together as clear a pitch as you possibly can if you want to like even create a story in the third person narrative. And photos are all, like really cute photos are always fantastic. Provide captions for them. For broadcasts, you have to have video. So it's a good idea to put together what we call B-roll, which is just action and background, and then also get interviews with some of your leadership team and put that together in one package or several different clips that they can pick up and put together a segment with. Because a lot of these newsrooms, I'm sure you've heard over the years, have been really, really cut back. So if you can provide them with something that they can almost just take and run with, they're very, very happy about that.
So true. I'm just looking back to the question, how do you outreach to your channel? And so in marketing, like I was saying before, we use a lot of channels, whether it be social media, PR, what have you, when we're building a campaign. And so, for marketing, I think it really goes back to understanding who your audience is and what your intention and what the messages you want to communicate to them to be able to figure out which channels you want to leverage. And so that really starts with research, right? At Best Friends, we are fortunate to have at our disposal all these fancy research tools to understand audience segments and things like that. However, having been in a shelter and the rescue world, I know that that's not always, available to you. So often what I would do, especially when I was in a municipal shelter and I had access to our data management system, whether it be PetPoint, Chameleon, whatnot, I would often look at zip codes, and I would start looking at the zip code and seeing where's the intake coming from, where are my adoptions happening, and start understanding your community that way so that you know how to target your message. Is it an education message? Do I need to go into this community with education material because I'm getting so many intakes from this community? Is it an adoption message? Or are there growth opportunities, zip codes we haven't reached? Maybe we need to be going into these communities. So I think even if you don't have the fancy, audience segment research at your disposal, there's certainly something you can be doing. And if you've learned nothing else from this conference, like making data-driven decisions and planning your campaigns, your promotions around data, and even in PR and messaging. I mean, it just helps to substantiate even more what you're doing. So I highly encourage that.
Add a few things to that. Thanks for the reminder, actually. So in terms of the actual outreach tactics I use, email is your friend. I mean, most people live and die by email nowadays, although a lot of journalists are on Twitter or X or whatever it is now. And you can reach out to them there, start following them. What I do typically is I will send story ideas. Like I'll send a paragraph above the press release and be like, hey, check it out. This is what we're doing. Like kind of break it down in a sentence or two and then give them the longer version that they can run with along with a photo. And then in the header you say, would you like to schedule an interview? And if you don't get a response on that, what you can do too is be like, hey, so-and-so, I'm so-and-so from so-and-so shelter. We're the local animal welfare experts in the community. Please let me know if there's any stories you're working on that require a spokesperson. We're more than happy to provide that for you. Another thing that we do at Best Friends a lot is use a pop culture or seasonal or holiday type story topic to weave in our messaging about no-kill and adoption and fostering. So is it National Black Cat Day? Is it, holidays and you want to provide pet safety tips? You can provide pet safety tips and then at the end of that say, hey, we have dozens of amazing dogs and cats who would love to be in your home for the holidays. And right now we're having a $14, $20 adoption special. So, and take advantage of opportunities that may not seem like a fit at first. So like I had a reporter reach out to me literally like 2 hours before my PTO around the holidays. And she said, oh, I want to do a story on pets as gifts. And I'm like, oh, great, here we go. And so I sat there for like 10 minutes and then I wrote her back and I was like, sure, I can meet you there, because she wanted to do it the next day, my day off. And I was like, sure, I can do that. I said, I'd also like to talk about our holiday adoption promotion and ways people can support the shelter. And most of that story was focused on the dogs that we were featuring, our adoption promo, and how people, instead of buying a pet or buying a pet for somebody, how they can support their shelter by giving a gift certificate or bringing their friends or family down to the shelter to pick out a pet and paying for it. So there's just a lot of different opportunities. Always keep your mind open to how can I put in my message and my focus into this, because typically you can.
And for my channel with influencer relations, relationships that I build with these influencers are incredibly valuable and very important. So typically what I do is, still now, even though I've been in this role for about 2.5 years, the main way that I find influencers to work with is I'm looking at who's interacting with us online. So see if there's any of your volunteers happen to have a platform. See if, who's following you back, who's commenting on your videos online. See if they have a couple thousand followers. Try to build that relationship with them if they'd be willing to do something. Offer them something in exchange for their time. So while we at Best Friends don't pay influencers, we typically will say, we'd love to share whatever you create with our audience of X amount of people, or maybe it's we'd love to bring you in for a private tour of our shelter so you can come and see and learn and you can share that with your audience. Oh, you're looking to adopt a cat, we would love to help you. Then they can come out, and then when they adopt that cat, they're gonna be like, I had the best experience at this shelter. And so by building those relationships, I think it's very important. You can definitely do cold call outreach, but just like with your donors, it's easier to get donations from people who already know who you are. It's the same with influencers. We really work on trying to work and focus on those people who already have some sort of interaction with us and know who we are to really help build that. The main way I do outreach too is through social. While email is considered like best practice, if you send them a DM, you don't have to talk to their agent if they have an agent, and it's a lot nicer. So I definitely have done some DMs, and I encourage you to reach out too to smaller accounts. A lot of times when people think, hey, I really need to be working with people who are like the D'Amelios or these other huge accounts, if you work with those smaller level accounts, one, it's a lot easier access to those influencers. And also, as their platform grows, they will still be with you and still be part of your organization. So I don't know if the name Dylan Mulvaney means anything to the people in this room, but we worked with her 2 years ago when she had about 10,000 followers. And now she's got 10 million, 7, 8 million on TikTok. So she's definitely blown up, and I still have her personal email address, and she emails me back, y'all. It's pretty awesome. I was like so excited. So definitely by building those relationships with those smaller creators, as their platforms continue to grow, you'll grow with them. And so really just those outreach, treating them, I treat our influencer program a lot like our major gifts team treats their people and their donors. It's a lot of stewardship. It's a lot of building that relationship. I have some of them texting me being like, I hate that I'm not at conference this year. Like, it's really you're building that relationship just like you do with your donors. And so by doing that outreach of people who already know who you are in a really easy way through social, inviting them to something when you reach out, hey, we saw that your dog passed away. We'd love to do like something in memory of your pet for you. If you're interested, let us know. Like offering those types of things that are very compassionate and kind and also bringing them into your organization are a great way to start building those relationships. And then once you have those relationships, and you're working on campaigns, you want to send them campaigns that you think are applicable to them. So if you've got someone who their account is all about their rescued Great Danes, maybe you don't send them the kitten foster campaign that you're working on right now, because maybe that doesn't really apply to them. So that's something too to really keep in mind, and we'll talk about that a little bit later with some of our examples. So we have 2 examples we want to share with you of campaigns we've kind of worked on. So I'm going to turn it over to Kerry for our big dog campaign, and the rest of us will kind of chime in. Feel free to go look at it if you need to.
Okay, so big dogs continue to be a vulnerable population in our shelters, but in 2021, dog adoptions were flat. They still are continuing to be an issue even to this day, but we were recognizing that in 2021 compared to 2020, they were down 34% compared to 2019. So, we wanted to do something around big dogs and how do we get them through our shelters and out into adoptive homes. So, as we know, big dogs tend to have longer lengths of stay. They're sometimes overlooked more in shelters, and they're just can be challenging to place in foster. So those were the kind of reasons for creating this campaign. We really wanted to destigmatize large dogs, debunk the myths, and drive big dog adoptions in communities that really needed the support. So we put together an omni-channel marketing campaign, and that kind of shows the graphic on, I guess, it would be closest to me, the wheel graphic. Kind of shows the different channels that we used in planning this campaign. So it really touched all of us. So we put together, a social plan. We put together the PR. We had advocacy. Advocacy came a little bit later, but we did have an advocacy component in it. Content creation. And then we even put together, Michelle had referred to a marketing toolkit earlier. We put together a marketing toolkit for our network partners so that, it could be customized and tailored to their market. So while we had, graphic overlays and we had some nice copy, the network partner was able to insert their own picture of a dog in their shelter, which was awesome because it really spoke to their community and it was very much more relatable. But we provided all these resources to network partners. We had a kickoff call before the campaign even started with our network partners just to kind of get everybody on the same page, answer questions, make sure everybody was comfortable with the rollout. So we actually piloted the program first in Texas with, how many partners? Sorry. It was in 2021. And then we saw some success in Texas, so we took it to California. These are the top 2 states, right, that are doing the most killings, so we wanted to see if we could move the needle a little bit. Then we took it to California. Michelle ran a lot of that, and we saw some success in that. And then we brought it national, and this was last October. We did a big national push for big dogs in October to align with Adopt a Shelter Dog Month. We saw a lot of great success with PR. So I wanted Michelle to chime in a little bit about that success.
Yeah, so one of the things that made this really compelling to media in Southern California is that it was, I think, almost 24 shelters that were participating in the Big Dog campaign. And we put a goal of 500 dogs in 2 weeks. It kicked off on January 15th and went through January 31st. And we provided the network partners, participating partners, with that template press release. So they were able to drop in their information and send it out to their local media. And the local media picked up on it. Oftentimes they would follow up by going to their shelter and doing a story on site, talking about some of the dogs that were available. Maybe they had been there quite a while. And we got dozens and dozens and dozens of media hits. It was a really successful campaign. So anytime you can talk about, we're having a rally to do this many adoptions, we're partnering with 24 shelters across the state or part of the state. You know, I did do a press release for every market, but it was really the markets that did their own press releases that got the majority of the pickup, and I was thrilled about that. So it was a very, very successful campaign, and more importantly, it drove adoptions.
Yeah.
There were quite a few shelters that said some of their very long-time resident big dogs found homes as a result, and of course, them discounting the fees was also another noteworthy topic. If you do something like this, if you can discount fees, or if you're partnering with a bunch of group and have it all the same price for adoption, that's super helpful in terms of communication. Just a little pro tip.
Yeah, and to tie in advocacy with this, it's really easy to, you know, if you have a marketing campaign and they're doing some of the storytelling, some of the really nice creative assets, things like that, you know, maybe directing them to a landing page of a website, tying in advocacy issues that relate to that topic is a really nice way to capture, again, those people that maybe can't adopt, foster, you know, donate, but they can do something, and you've gotten them in because they love big dogs, they want to support. So we have quite a few kind of advocacy issues that are related to big dogs, because obviously if you have a big dog, you need to have a home to bring it to. And so we do a lot of work around affordable housing and allowing big dogs and certain breeds that would qualify as big dogs, you know, getting rid of those breed restrictions, those weight restrictions, having an affordable house, home, somewhere to live and bring that dog to. It's very difficult to find nowadays, and you're adding on this big dog that, you know, there's hardly any pet-friendly housing. If it is, you know, you're paying extra for pet deposits, pet fees, even pet rent every month. Maybe sometimes they increase it by weight. So really tying in that advocacy effort around making sure that there is affordable pet-friendly housing that doesn't have any breed restrictions or weight restrictions. That is a great tie-in to this campaign, because we're able to build that connection, and people can also get educated on some of the problems that maybe certain communities face more than others. So tying that in is really great.
And it also ties back to the data, because we know nationally that, you know, the #1 reason animals are surrendered, a good portion of them big dogs,
Yes.
is housing. So it all kind of came full circle, and I think that was one of the wonderful things about the campaign too. We did pop up some of the results. You can look at that at your leisure. I will say, you know, the results actually may have been a little bit higher. One of the things that we like to do when we do these broad national campaigns, but then have like a very regional or community focus, is we ask our partners that participate in the campaigns to provide us the feedback. How's it going in your community? How many big dogs did you adopt during this campaign timeframe? That's because we really do look at the data. We want to know, is this moving the needle? And so out of, you can see like in Texas, there were 21 network partners when we did the pilot. 13 reported their data. So out of the 13, this is how many lives we saved in 31 days. But had all of those partners report it, it may have been higher. So same with everything, like California, you can see. And then we had 161 network partners nationally, with only 12 reporting. So I'm assuming that, you know, we probably missed or didn't count a good portion that were adopted that we could have. But we, again, why we ask for data a lot of times is because we want to see, you know, the trends and see that it's moving and that the campaigns are working.
We actually didn't have a lot of influencer involvement in the national big dog campaign last year, because it came up closely after one of our other large national campaigns. And so just like with your donors, you don't want to always be going to them constantly with asks and asking them to do things. So we looked at who we hadn't asked for the previous national campaign, and then that made it a much smaller group of people who we did reach out to. So we ended up having like 2 or 3 influencers who did participate in this campaign, but we had a lot more involvement in our next one, which Keiko is going to share with us.
Yes. So just this past year, we put on our very first National Action Week for Animals. We love our acronyms here, so NAWA. If you are able to participate in our next one, please pay attention for that. But essentially what this was pulling in, again, a new audience of advocates and training our current base of advocates on, in this case, it was all around cat life-saving, because on the previous data set that we were working off of, cats were still the higher gap there. So we were able to kind of take our advocates along on a journey with us throughout the week by providing them all of the training they need to advocate for cats in their own community. So again, working towards that no-kill 2025 vision by utilizing people that can really dig in deep, and now they understand what they need to do to implement those community cat programs, make sure that there is TNVR in their communities, and also just learn how to talk to their elected officials about cats, because it's certainly not the same as talking about cats to your friends. So that was what we ended up doing. We ended up getting 311 new people through our cat pledge alone, but of course with action teamers we had over 1,000 new action teamers join, and I want to say that's probably even more like 1,500, but we had 3,300 people participating in that week. So it was a really nice way to level up our advocates, give them the tools that they need, and kind of send them on their way with actions that they can take and spread around in their own community.
And the channels you used were mostly email and social media, correct, for that campaign?
Social media, we also did Facebook ads, so bringing in more people that way. We actually had a press release on it. We did, again, advocacy uses all the different channels to speak to different audiences, segments, and make sure that we're bringing new people in and not just the people that we already have, because ultimately, to reach no-kill, we need to have all of the community engagement that we could possibly have.
And so for influencer involvement for this campaign, I looked at our influencer portfolio, so our list of all of the people that have said yes, they want to work with Best Friends, and I tried to find the ones that I thought would be most interested in this campaign. So we worked with a lot with specifically cat influencers, but also people who don't have cat, or they have cats, but their platform isn't focused on just, hey, look, this is my cat, look how adorable they are. So we worked with like cat lover influencers. We had about 40 influencers that I reached out to with the campaign. We used a trackable link. We had 10 influencers who ended up sharing about the pledge on their stories or making a post on their Instagram feeds or other feeds. And then we recruited those new action team members so we could track through that link that we used that we sent specifically to our influencer partners.
Yeah.
Awesome. I know we touched a little bit on it, and I know we're getting close to our 5-minute mark. We want to have questions. So we talked a little bit about localized campaigns. I wanted to see if the panel had anything else they wanted to add. So obviously our 2 examples were large national, and Kerry did hit some big dog campaigns that were state specific. But I just wanted to see if anybody had any other like localized suggestions.
Well, when I was in Los Angeles, we did a lot of local campaigns. We had super adoption events. We had cat promotions. I think Black Friday was a big deal for us. We would open at 6 a.m. and we did $10 adoptions. We called it Holiday 100, and we would go towards that goal. See, that goal, again, is always kind of compelling. Like, did you reach the goal? I'd have newsrooms like, did you reach the goal yet? And of course, what we would do after we got the 100 adopted is just keep going. But they didn't know that. So yeah, like anything you can do to make things interesting to your local market, talk about your events, talk about your promotions, talk about holidays, if you're doing something fun, if you're doing something different, like even reach out, like I said, about seasonal holiday pop culture events. We had a dog in LA that was named Taylor Swift, and all her puppies were named after her songs, I believe. I'm not a Swiftie, sorry, but so all the puppies got adopted, and then Taylor Swift did not get adopted. So recently when when the real Taylor Swift was in LA, our awesome marketing PR person, Alina, sent a story out about how the dog Taylor Swift was still looking for a home, and I believe she got adopted. Got picked up by like KTLA and several other stations too. So it's just really knowing who your local media is and what they like, and keep at it. Even if you don't get it right away, it's a long game.
Yeah, and I would say add to that for the marketing side too. It really helps, you know, in your local community. Like, what are those, you know, nuances or things that are different about your community that you could tie into? What's trending in your community? Of course, there's national trends and things, but like, what are the things that you can hop on and you know, tag your animal shelter or your rescue into? So
Yeah. Like now that I live in Utah, there's Pioneer Day. That just hit me now. I'm like, oh, I have to do something for Pioneer Day. When is it? I need to do that.
And I think everybody probably did the Barbie stuff. It was Taylor Swift and Barbie. That was the major campaigns this summer. So
Exactly.
yes, saw a lot of Barbie stuff.
As far as advocacy goes, you know, identifying those community stakeholders that people trust so that you can pass along the message through them. If you're a network partner, we would often, like I said earlier, work with you to, you know, have you be the face of a certain campaign. And I did want to just plug that we do have the ability for network partners to host a petition on our action.bestfriends.org that is completely linked to your organization rather than linked to us. So that is a free resource for you guys that I highly encourage you to use. But yeah, that's how we typically engage in local campaigns. We also have a ground grassroots team where essentially they will also just go into a community, start canvassing, getting to know the people that live there so that we have a better idea of what they need and how we can you know, really cater to them in our advocacy campaigns.
One more thing. So now that I'm based in Kanab, we don't have the events and the super adoptions and things like that, but what the sanctuary does is take in a lot of animals from shelter partners in the surrounding states or in that county. And recently we've just had so many. There was a case in New Mexico where there were 55 pit bull type dogs living on a property with these two brothers and their elderly neglected mother. So apparently they were, anyway. And half of those dogs came to Best Friends. And so we're lucky enough to have a videographer at Best Friends, but they do have lives too. So this was a Friday night, and I went out and shot all the B-roll, and I figured it all out. It took me a minute, but I was able to send a shareable link to local media, and it got picked up like that. So any kind of interesting case where you're taking in a large amount of dogs or cats, or you know, if you have data to back up your increase in certain types of populations at your shelter, like for some reason, you know, we're 50% over capacity versus this time last year. Anything like that, I think is they love stats, you guys. They love the stats. So anything you can do to back it up, it's always a good idea.
Awesome. So I know we probably have like 1 minute left. Yep, 1 minute left. So we'll be around for questions for sure. So please feel free to come up and chat with us. We did have some resources we wanted to share. Some of these are like low cost or free. So for me to plug my influencer resource that I use all the time is Upfluence. They have a Chrome plugin that is a free Chrome plugin where you can pull up the influencer's Instagram or Facebook page or whatever. You click the little Upfluence plugin button and it'll pull up what the platform knows about their audience. So their demographics, gender, age, where they're located. You can see their engagement rate. You can see their most engaged with posts. So you can kind of look at that information as you're trying to look and say, hey, is this somebody that I'd like to be a partner? We listed kind of broken down by which area we thought they'd be helpful. And then obviously for everyone, there's a lot of great sources there too.
Volunteers.org, great resource for people who have a skill set that you're looking for, who can work out of their homes. I was a volunteer, Kerry was a volunteer. I've done everything from volunteer coordination to media to marketing to events to getting gifts from corporate partners. Like, I've done everything as a volunteer that I've done professionally. So you can find people like us.
Yeah, and I was going to say, to add on to that, like if you are that one woman or one man show at your shelter, like surrounding yourself with professional or volunteers that have professional skill sets, you know, is invaluable. Whether it be if you're, you know, in the marketing seat and you have a photographer, or you know a videographer in your community that can help you. Somebody that's great with graphics, although Canva's awesome. If you haven't checked it out yet, you should definitely do that. We actually, a lot of the toolkits that we design now for marketing purposes are designed in Canva for that reason, so that we can share it out with our partners, so it's easy customizable. So,
And local colleges.
yeah, local
So we're getting the hook off the stage right now. But there's our contact information. Again, we'll be around for questions. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.